Hey, it's Don, the Auction Professor. Just want to pull out another reminder there. Tuesday, October 30th, there will be a live show. It's going to be a live Halloween haul, along with a giveaway of some original artwork. That will be at 7 p.m., October 30th. So just keep an eye out. We will still have our live show Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as well. So anyway, this will be the second half of my World's Fair video. I'm going to go into some more details, some more items, center in some cheaper items today, just to show you some of the wide variety of items that are available. Again, I'll add some more information in the whole works in too. But we're going to go to the screen right now. Okay, so as I've said, there's pretty much anything that you could have imagined that was available in the normal life, available at the World's Fair. That even is down to toys. Now, this is an arcade brand. That is the actual brand that made these. There's a ton of different kinds of these. I don't believe they say arcade on them, but either way, you'll know it when you see it. It's very specific. It's literally the tram car from the World's Fair. Now, sometimes the paint's gone and you won't see the white lettering for New York World's Fair, but again, it's the same piece. These show up. There's a dozen or more of these that sold just in the last, like, say, 30 days. So these are something that you can find. You can find individual ones and not know what they are. Because obviously the tram cars themselves don't say anything, but $379.95. Now, this is a model of the sphere. So the Unisphere, which was like the centerpiece of the World's Fair from '64. This was $375. It's a rare item. It's a model, basically. And models of these places sell extremely well into the hundreds. Now, this is another token. At the time, aluminum was pretty scarce. It was something new, came out in the 1870s, so aluminum was a hot item to make things out of. It didn't matter what. And this is just an example, just a cheapo token that would have been available at the time. It would have probably been a quarter or something, or they may have even given them away. But again, it sold for $333 because it's a scarce piece these days. And as I've said, you know, small items are what I do a lot of. So a lot of these things are smalls. They'll show in box lots and, you know, just flea markets, antique malls, antique fairs, all of that kind of stuff. These things will show up. Some of them are obviously not as much as others, like glass plate slides of the fair. This is actually a set that you could have bought. So it's a souvenir. This isn't a candid set. This is something that was mass produced. This one went for $350. So again, there's any number of things that you could imagine. Anything that you would, as a tourist, could find, they had for the World's Fair. Here's just a camera, $300. And this is a cheapo back then. It would have been just a couple of bucks. And there's, you know, bunches of different kinds of cameras available at these events. So this is just one example. I just picked one of the cheaper looking ones. It's probably Bakelite. It has the Trilon and the Sphere as well, too. Now here's a sundial, 1939 Golden Gate Expo. Now this isn't technically a World's Fair, but I just wanted to show you some of the other items that, you know, you would find out there. And this is it. I mean, this kind of thing you would find even back to, you know, the Columbian Exposition. So, and this one's $365, and this is just from 1939. It's just what it is. It's an oddball item. This is a pocket knife. Now, almost every fair that I could imagine, I found a pocket knife for, past 1893. Everyone has a pocket knife. There might even be some from the 1876 one, maybe a boot knife or something. But this is just something you'll see. This is $300. Open bid, auction, so who knows what it could have went for on a buy it now. Another arcade. Now, this is from, again, the 1939 World's Fair. And you can see the logo on the side. It's an arcade. It's a cast iron. Yeah, I didn't think they were marked on any of these. This is pretty much what they all look like on the bottom. Any of these cast iron ones. This one has good paint, so somebody took care of it, I would gather. Either way, $355. And again, these are small items. Now, here's another example. This doesn't say World's Fair on the books. It just says Art and Architecture. But it's Art and Architecture of the Columbian Exposition, the Columbian World's Fair. That's all that it is. So it's rather interesting set. These will show up in bookshelves or in auctions. People don't always know what they are, pay attention to them. They just say old book, you know, and off they go. $375, as I said. Again, as aluminum was just into fad, like 1890s through this era, you will find aluminum playing cards. Even individual cards can sell, and that's the box that they were sold in. It's literally just printed on the actual cards. And you can see at St. Louis World's Fair, just that Joker can sell too. The rest of them have buildings and such forth on them from the fair. Rather interesting. I liked this set. I wouldn't want to use them if I had them, but I wouldn't get them unless I would use them. So, it defeats itself for me anyway. Rather interesting. Individual cards can sell for $10 or so, 15, 20, even more on the right day. Or if someone, say, is just missing one card from the set. And that does happen. If you buy old cards like we do, playing cards, you're going to run into sets missing a card here or there. I always count them and make sure the jokers are there. If they don't have the jokers and the set's complete, if the set's rare enough, it's still worth buying. Souvenir glasses, just like they do today. Here's a whole set of them from the fair. So, I mean, whatever you could have imagined, even stuff you'd get right this second at a fair, were available back then, even in 1893. $300 for that set. Now, this is another ticket. And it says what this one is, so there's no doubt on this one. It says where it's at. It says, time, the date, the whole works. $288. So I always look for tickets. Always, always, always. It's small, they're paper. They show up mixed in big chunk lots. Now here's a 16mm home film. It's just of California area, but it has the 1933 World's Fair in it. It's hard to say what this one would have went if it was all just fair. It would have still went in the same price range, my guess would be. Because you're competing with Long Beach collectors and Earthquake collectors and World's Fair collectors on this one. So, but either way, they're very desirable. Just another arcade one just to show you. This is a different color. They come in several colors. Greyhound bus. This one's much better than the other one. It's got a better emblem on the front of it. So anyway, $281. Now here's an 1876 glass plate slide. This is actually hand tinted, and it's very, very well done, the tinting. It looks very realistic for the day. It's an actual picture, on the slide, I would gather, like an ambrotype. But it's actually just a glass plate slide that's, been painted to match the actual real life. This one went for $750. They might have been able to put more on it. This is a very rare item. Statue of Liberty, this is right after it was delivered. The arm part, that's all that was ready at this time when this event was on. It was delivered for the Centennial. Just to give you an idea on the size, this is the actual hand on, the arm section off of the Statue of Liberty. This was put together once it was here. If you're not familiar with the Statue of Liberty, look it up. It's an interesting history. There's actually, I think, a documentary we watched years ago about this, maybe even longer than that, maybe 10 years ago. And it covers a lot of this. And you'll see some of these images as they were arriving. You'll see a foot like on a tram car being pulled down the street, things like that. When the Statue of Liberty is put together, not necessarily the 1876 Centennial. Again, the arm was the only thing ready. So anyway, let's move on. Now here's a silk napkin, or not a napkin, a scarf. And it's an advertisement one as well, too. And these things you could have bought, or they would have probably been given away at some point. Teddy Roosevelt. And there's scarves for everything, all kinds of events. I find these mixed up in ladies' things and, boxes of old scarves. And most people don't look through them. I look through every scarf bin I see, every one. Because quite often I find like a designer one or a promotional one. We had some cats and dogs. There were cute kittens from the 30s and 40s, all silk, with patterns of those dogs. I got like $40 or $50 a piece when we sold them. I paid $1 a piece for each one, and all of them sold. So I've always looked for this kind of thing. And this isn't, I don't consider clothing. I consider them souvenirs. So this goes in collectibles as well, too. This would have been in the political section or the World's Fair section. But anyway, $275. Now, this is a cast iron Hubley. You can see the 1933 as dog tag. That's literally the fair dog tag. Now, Hubley made cap guns, and they made them way up into the 70s and 80s, if I'm not mistaken. They may even still be in business. I don't really know. But I only mess with the older ones. But they made cap guns and toys and things from the 20s, 30s, 40s. So this is a typical thing. This one went for $395. Let's see if you can see there's the logo. It's pretty cute. You can find sometimes just that little chain logo part too that have come off, and those still go for $15-20 minimum. Some people want to replace theirs if they have the actual pencil holder paperweight. Now this is a Stephen graph. Now, I know people say, how are you gonna find these? These actually say Stephen Graff usually. Does this one say it? I'd be surprised if it didn't. Oh, that's weird that it doesn't say it, but these are like machine stitched silk. Rather interesting item. I've had several of these. Maybe they're just saying Stephen Graff because it's basically the same thing. There obviously could be other companies that made these, but Stephen Graff, I find them in the 1890s, and they'll sometimes show up in like bins with postcards and things, or just vintage paper items even. And some people think they're newer because of the quality and the condition and how they look. But these are all old items. $271. I've sold a couple Stephen Graffs, almost identical in style and construction as this, for a couple $100, on both occasions. And, I've seen them before. I just was unlucky enough to be the first one to get to the sale, or, I didn't win the auction. It was local live auction, so anyway. Now, this is a bank, mechanical bank. If you look, that's obviously Columbus. It may not say World's Fair because, again, some of these don't say it. Yeah, it doesn't look like it does say it on this one. Patent applied for. On that one here. I don't think it even says it on this one. So you're just going to have to know. But any of these old banks are worth money. But this one specifically is worth more than most. It's World's Fair. There's catalogs with images of every one of these banks. Not just the World's Fair, but banks in general, though. So anyway, that's a pretty interesting item. Background's terrible, but anyway. Coffee mugs even. Now, if you live in an area where a World's Fair is, you've got a lot better chance on finding these items. Century 21 Exposition. You just have to know some of this. Seattle World's Fair. So, it's not a well-collected one, but a mug for most of them pre-64 is usually pretty good. And this is an early one. 64 World's Fair is about the newest I buy anything from, unless it's really a really cool, interesting, scarce item. For the most part, you're going to sell the 64 and down World's Fair pieces. This is a good example of a nice piece that's off topic what most people would see. And this would just show up how many people would know that that's a World Fair coffee cup. I doubt very many people would. Now, I would have pulled it out instantly if I saw that. $265. This is a known coffee mug. And there's, dozens and dozens and dozens of coffee cup designs from the World's Fair. You just got to get to know the logos of the fair. That's the key. You don't have to know the China or any of that kind of stuff. You just have to know what a logo, what the logos are and what fair they were from. Because they don't always say fair. They'll say exposition or centennial or, things along that line. Now, here's a brochure. 6 places on World's Fairground for barbecue. So, it's a pretty interesting one. Here's a map. I was going to say any of these mapped ones that have a map that show you where you can get them. The World's Fair was big. You can see it's a fairly big. These buildings are huge. If Google searched 1904 World's Fair, this was 10 cents back then too. That was pretty. I'm sorry. The sandwiches are 10 cents back then. This was probably a freebie. Nothing over 20 cents. It's got prices. This is just an awesome piece. It's got a map. It's got prices. It's got a list of the items. So this would have been what was available for freebie item. This was a giveaway. So you'd go and buy their food. $255 with 38 bids. I might have just put this up, say, for 400 as a bin and see what happens. That would have been my thought on it anyway. Posters, 67. Now, again, this is something out of the ordinary. You're not going to see posters like this, especially the complete set. Most of these items were issued in sets of 4, so keep that in mind. Almost anything like this, sets of 4 for all of them. So that's why this one, I would have bought these two, $255. Even though I don't mess much with the, 67 and up, the Montreal one, but, poster-wise, I would have definitely bought it. Posters always seem to sell because they're scarce, especially if they're only rolled. Rolled posters sell better than folded. Folded can be somewhat fixed by ironing them very carefully, but that's a skill you need to practice a heck of a lot because you'll ruin the paper, the ink, it'll discolor if you put too much heat or anything on it. So anyway, just FYI. Now here is a beer stein. Now a lot of people pass up the ones with the leaded glass or the lead lid or aluminum lid or whatever the kind of lid is on these because they think they're too new. But this is a good example. And there's crazing, all those little cracks. That's cracks in the glaze on the outside of the ceramic. And that's standard for some of these. Obviously if it doesn't have that, it's worth more. But again, 253 conditions. It says no chips, cracks, or losses. It does have issues. They didn't put the crazing as an issue. To me, that is an issue because you can find these mugs without that at all. It's like a glass crack almost, it looks like, and it's literally not supposed to be like that. This is a specific Heineken, so beer item, very interesting mug. I've had mugs from the World's Fairs before. They always sell, $50 or better for any mug from most any fair. Now this is a plate topper or just an extra plate you could put on your car from the World's Fair, and this is just something you'll find too. You're going to pay up for them, but $2.75. You might be able to get something like this at an auction for $100. And you should be able to flip it for, $250 to $300 pretty easily if you see it. But again, these are items I've run into or seen. Things you will see. These are smaller, cheaper items. I know the prices still seem high, but these are items that you should be able to find. They do show up. I've seen most every one of these. I haven't seen the box for this one, but I think this one moves or spins or something, if I'm not mistaken, or shoots up the coin or something like that. $148. I would have binned it too, and then just one from there. Now, this is a book from the IBM Pavilion at the 64 World's Fair. It's interesting. It's like an Eames era style. I've seen this book before again, and you'll see this book occasionally if you go to a lot of sales like we do, or look at a lot of stuff. This person collects modernism stuff, I would imagine, because his name's even in there. Or he's got pickers that come and bring stuff to him. So, people that collect or like modernistic stuff are going to buy stuff like this. So this shows up in collections. That's a key to what we do as well, collections and estates and things. Pocket watch, 1889, Paris Exposition World's Fair. It's an alarm clock, so it's not technically a pocket watch, but it's still a rather interesting item. It would sit on your nightstand just like a pocket watch, $249. Picture frames, good example. Here's a nice one. And there's picture frames for almost all of the World's Fair. There's actually a fair building in the middle, so I wouldn't take that out. That goes with this. Pewter picture frame, 1893 Columbian Exposition World's Fair. Rather interesting item. It doesn't look much different than the 30s style, so just keep that in mind. The style didn't change for a while. You can see the design, of the winged deity on the top. So anyway, these are interesting standard items. They're in the books. They show up often. Maybe often to me isn't often to you. You're not going to see all these every single month of the year. So, if you're lucky enough to get one or two of these items each year, again, you're adding to your list of items you know. The more items you know, the more you're going to make. I find World's Fair stuff all the time. Maybe not a picture frame just like this, but I find World's Fair stuff all the time. No, this is even an odd item, a chamber pot. Probably wouldn't have been used, but you never know. People had fancy ones because they sat in people's houses, and you wanted it still to look nice, even though it's a chamber pot, basically a toilet. So anyway, $238. It didn't go for as much as you would think because of what it is. Who's going to really want to collect a chamber pot? It's an interesting item with some nice graphics on it, though. Now spoons. I don't think there's a fair out there of any kind, World's Fair, local fair, regional fair, industrial fair, whatever, that didn't have a spoon issued. And I might cover spoons in general in another one, but this is a sterling one, so I always buy the sterling ones. If they're sterling and they're cheap, weight-wise, if they're scrap value or cheaper, I will buy them. $235 on that one. Now these perpetual clocks. Now a perpetual clock, if you don't know, or calendar I should say, perpetual calendar, is something that will always be valid. You can always use it forever. You just change something or add something and it's ready to go. And some of them, it just constantly, you can change it and it gives you the exact information. It won't necessarily give you day of the week, the correct day of the week on most perpetual calendars, just FYI. But I've had wooden block ones and all kinds of ones, and I've showed some in some of my other videos. But perpetual calendars in general sell. So calendars in general sell. So, it just depends on what you find. We look for anything that has a potential value to it. And then we investigate that category until we, know if there's more items to be looked for. So anyway, $237, as I said on this one. Hand fan. This is something that you can find. Now, I've repaired pieces like this. So, if you know what you're doing, the paper on these can be carefully corrected and fixed, and there's ways to do this stuff. So paper conservation is an area that we do like. I like doing it. I do it even if I didn't sell stuff. I love bringing stuff back to life, like a dead item that's just mostly destroyed, and bringing it back to a usable condition. That's just something I like doing. I'd probably do it as a hobby if I didn't. But $229. I find hand fans for all kinds of things. I know they had them all the way up to 64 World's Fair because I've seen them or had them. Little match cases, just like cigarette cases, match cases, stamp cases like this, any of these little tiny metal things. Matchbox cases you'll see too for all of these. This is a rather interesting item. You could buy Columbia postage stamps, and this was probably sold at one of the places that did that. Calling card boxes, like if you wanted to hand out a business card, they made boxes like that too. There's just a ton of these. This one's missing the surface. Somebody looks like they've cleaned it aggressively, the body of it anyway. Yeah, somebody's cleaned this. Now, I don't clean them. If it's dark on something like this, don't clean it. Don't clean any of these things. Silver is one thing, but don't clean brass or any other metal. Let it be the way it is. Dirty, dingy, or not. Unless you know what you are doing, you are going to destroy the value, the patina, the dark coloration on most of these items people want. But this is $228.50. Now here's a catalog, licensed catalog. It shows all the stuff that was available, the merchandise. It lists, it all. It shows images of it. People buy these as well for, an idea on what you could find. And it lists just tons of oddball stuff. I mean, bow ties and tables and chairs. And I told you, anything that was in real life, you could find here. Clothing, shoes, cameras, books, jewelry. I mean, the list of stuff that they made is horrendous. Suspenders, ties. And this goes back for any of the World's Fair. As a catalog, $223. Pretty good price for a catalog. Here's another one, a nice ticket. It doesn't say a date, so most people might not know. $223. So again, it looks pretty new. It's a small, tiny item. They show up all the time. I wouldn't pass something like this up. Cane handles. This is the whole cane, actually, but this is just to show you the example. Now, this is a common piece, only $211. I have people say when I say it's only $200, only $300, that's still a lot of money. In my world, that's not. And I'm not trying to brag or anything, but we run across hundreds and hundreds of dollar items all the time. I mean, constantly. There's a week goes by that I don't sell many items for hundreds of dollars. That's just the field that we are in. So I'm not trying to brag again, but these things show up. For us, I see stuff like this. There's probably dozens of these that sold in the same time frame, so it's not that rare. You just have to look in different areas that you're not used to looking, and know what you know what you can pay for this and still make a profit. That's the key. Probably showed up at an auction for $75 or something. I mean, that's what I would have expected to see this for, and I would have paid $75 for it. Obviously, I say I spend only, quarter, a dime, $1, whatever, for most items, which is true. 90%, maybe not that high, but a vast majority of all items I get really cheap, a couple dollars. But I do spend and shell out a lot of money for many items when they have the potential quick value flip. I would have just put this up for $300. It would have been gone the first day I listed. I can guarantee you. Records, too. Now, this is a specific one. This is like a demo acetate, probably used at the fair for practice for something. I would gather this was probably played at the fair, but this kind of stuff shows up. There's World's Fair records. There's a movie at the World's Fair, so there's other items that show up. Whatever you could imagine shows up from World's Fairs, as I've said. Now, this is a rather interesting item. I would have loved to have found this. It's actually, I'm not sure how if that cardboard or what. Yeah, it must just be paper of some sort. But this is like a paper folder with his... Yeah, I think around the edges there would have been stuff that he would have punched out as he used it. Yeah, that's what it is. And so he still had some left. They might have just gotten damaged through time, but it's got a picture of the gentleman. This is a pass for the train at one of the fairs. Now, I'm surprised this didn't go for more money. I would have put this up for like $500 as a bin, and I almost guarantee you I would have probably gotten $350 for this versus their $206. Because there would have been all these people that were interested in it, not knowing this is something that might not show up but once or twice a year. So there's no comps. And you can go to Worth Point or waste your time on any of that stuff. I wouldn't have done it. I would have just thrown it up really high. Even if I didn't see one of these for sale, I would have still thrown it up for, $400 or $500, no matter what, just because I've had so many of these types of items. So you just got to keep some thought into this. How scarce it is. Who cares if there's not one up and you're not sure on pricing? Just throw a huge, humongous price out there and go from there on items like this. Now, I know these kind of items, so I can't, I can't, explain the whole process on pricing some of these, just because I've had them and I know them better than most people that sell this stuff. But anyway, a good item. Either way, I'm just surprised it went so cheap. Now here's like artwork, and you could have bought these boards and things, Metalcraft. I don't think this is made on metal. I think that's just the name of it. But this kind of stuff does show up. It shows up even at Savers, believe it or not, because I've found some of these board pictures at Savers, and they were just junked in. No one thought anything of it. It says what it is on there, but they don't look all the time. Or the ones that we used to have. All of our Savers are closed. $204, and there's dozens of these different designs just from the 64 World's Fair. Now here's a uniform, and I've talked about this too. This is the button. Trilon and the sphere are in it, are on the buttons itself. Maker's not important, and neither is some of the other information on here. But the buttons and the style, this is an official jacket from the World's Fair. It's a police officer's jacket, so $201. Now again, this has been like a $350 item. I would have put it up as a bin, $350, and I would have been gone. I wouldn't have had to wait for bidding. I would have probably gotten, $275 or $300 would be my guess, because that's what I would have taken for it. I would have just held on to it and waited, and I almost guarantee you it would have sold. Now you see down there underneath the last brass button, there's just a plain button. If you're not aware how jackets are in some of these military-style jackets, that's that way because it wouldn't have shown. There's actually a belt that goes around this that is missing, and you can see the clips from the belt itself, so that would have stayed on in the right place. They were made to stay on in that specific spot across the jacket, so it's a shame it's not there, but it's still a real nice piece. And uniforms show up all the way back to 1876 World's Fair, just FYI. Now here is a shotgun shell, basically, a rifle casing. Now this is a specific one. It was probably used at some shooting event or something at there. This is for a trapdoor rifle. Now I've had pictures of it. I've had parts to it, so I know what the spring-filled trapdoor is. I think it's 4530 or 4570 is what these shells are for. Rather interesting. You can't miss what it says on the back. It's, the 100th anniversary. This would have been something available. And you can even see the USC, it says in the center, literally. So that's a C, so it's a United States Centennial. So anyway, that was the Centennial World's Fair. This was not fired, and if you don't know how to tell, back in 1876, this would have been a rim fire, meaning that a hammer would have slammed down on the rim of the shell, and that would have exploded it and shot the bullet out. So there is no rim-fire ding on the side. And you could have repacked these, and it would have just fired it on a different spot. So you reuse these. They pick up the shells and save them and repack them. Newer shells are center-fired, meaning there's a little center area that's where the hammer slams down on. So anyway, if you're not familiar with that, just FYI. But anyway, I've metal detected. We find shells all the time. So, in Civil War shells and stuff like that even show up. And they're, almost all exclusively, if there is a shell. Most of the time they're packed in paper, but anyway. $199 for that piece. That has multiple appeal anyway. Now here's something, too, that most people might have missed because it says it real small down in the bottom here. But this is just a salt and pepper shaker set. Now, I would have seen this, and you can find these just shoved in salt and paper collections. And they don't always say what it is. You just have to know the design, that's the building. This is the rotunda of the Ford Exposition building. And we've been to the Henry Ford Museum here, and they have pieces from this, so I knew it instantly. And I would know this instantly. Some people say it looks like a Jell-O mold, just FYI, and I've heard that before. And there is a Jell-O mold of this, from what I understand. So, anyway, I just got another item here just to kind of give you an idea. 35 millimeter red border slides. Now I've talked about the slides. We sell them all the time. $195 for 20 slides. Something like this I could have paid $5 or $10 for hundreds and hundreds of slides, and you know, picked through them and picked out the good ones. And I have some World's Fair slides right this second, so you know, they do show up. This is one of those items that this is why I buy bulk lots when I know it's an untouched estate lot of slides, because who knows what's in there. You can always get your money back pretty much on slides, even if you just bulk sell them online. You can see the magnitude of the fair. Look at that size of Washington. I mean, that's huge. And that looked like a special event in some of these other items here. So it's just an interesting look. These are one-of-a-kinds. You know, you won't find another one. You're on the border of whether you can reproduce these or not. Something like this, you may not technically have the permission, but I know tons of people who reprint these in aspects and print things of them, because there's no way to tie a specific World's Fair slide image to a specific person who took it. Because this is probably the only one of these that existed. The rule of thumb is most items have to be 80 years or older. This is right there. This is something that you could do something with. You could put it in a book without having issues, I would imagine. It would just be so hard for somebody to pin it. Now, this one has somebody in it, so that might be a different story. But overall, these are some real nice slides. But that's what I have for you on this. Well, there you go. That's the second part of my video on World's Fair items. Again, World's Fair is a huge area. We always look for it. You just got to know a little bit of something about it. You have to know what's the good ones to look for, what's the best items, and be able to search these items up. Again, research is key for all of this. Again, a reminder here, we do have a live show on Tuesday, October 30th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That will actually be a Halloween haul video as well as a costumed giveaway. I'll be dressed up in full costume as well too. So anyway, we will be putting that out that day. And then Thursday, we will have our usual live show at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as well. Well, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified when we post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.